name's Claire and I'm one of the facilitators for Derby Museum. And today I'm going to help you celebrate St Valentine's Day by making your very own card. Now first of all, a little bit about Valentines. Valentine's greetings were popular as far back as the Middle Ages. But the oldest known Valentine is a poem, and it was written by a man called Charles, Duke of Orleans. Now Charles, Duke of Orleans, had been captured at a big battle called Agincourt, and he was locked up in the Tower of London. And whilst there, on Valentine's Day, he wrote a poem to declare his love for his wife. And that poem, the very first known Valentine, is still in existence today. Now over the years, whilst Valentine's Day has been used to declare a secret love, it has evolved, and today we use it to celebrate our family, our friends, and even our pets. So for this reason, I have decided that our project is going to encompass two things. The first thing, I want it to celebrate February, the month in which we start to see the first signs of spring, the buds on the leaves and the crocuses and the snowdrops emerging from under the soil and giving us that first taste of summer colour that we have yet to come. And secondly, I wanted us to celebrate our families and our friends and our pets. So here you can see is a card that I have made with my lovely green on the bottom, which is replicating the grass and the bulbs that are starting to come up, and my tree with the branches and the hearts that represent the 6 people in my family. And laid out here in front of me are all the utensils that we need to do the project. So I have my piece of paper, my A4 sheet of paper, my red paper for the hearts, the lollipop sticks that I'm going to use for my stencil, the black marker pen to write the initials on, my paints, paintbrush, a little bowl to put my paints in, my glue, paper scissors, and a pencil to draw my heart. So when you've got all of your things laid out in front of you and you've got your work apron on so that you don't get covered in paint and glue, we'll start the project. So the first thing you're going to do is take your sheet of white paper and fold it in half along the long edge. Make sure that you get the edges nicely together, and you're going to do a nice crisp crease running your finger along the edges to create your card, like so. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your paint. I'm going to start with my brown paint and I'm going to squeeze a little bit just into my bowl. Okay, so using my lollipop stick, I'm going to paint along this edge here, and this is going to make the trunk of my tree. So just a little dab of my paint, and I'm just going to paint nicely along the edge. Okay, and when I've got a nice thick bit of paint, I'm going to place that in the middle of my sheet of white paper to create the trunk of my tree. Okay, so when I've done that, the next thing I want to do is to use my long thin lollipop stick, and I'm going to break this into different sizes. And the reason I want different sizes is because this is now going to become the branches of my tree. So I've done 3. So I've got one reasonably long one slightly shorter, and then a small one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my brown paint and I'm going to paint along the edge again. Okay, and I'm going to use this to create the main branches that come out of my tree. And I'm going to do it as you can see. So it starts to create a lovely tree shape. I'm then going to take my next lollipop stick, the slightly shorter one, and I'm going to create some new branches that come off those main branches. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just going to do exactly the same at different angles, different shapes. If you run out of paint, just place a little bit more onto your lollipop stick. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put those new buds, the little green buds that are starting to burst into life on our branches. So for that, I'm going to use some green paint, and I'm just going to squeeze a little bit into the bottom of my pot. And I'm going to take my lollipop stick, and this time I'm going to put just a little tiny bit of paint onto the very end of it. And then I'm just going to dab it in little drops along the branches of the trees, just to show the new leaves coming through. So these can be all sorts of sizes. Remember that nothing in nature is ever symmetrical. So as we do this, you'll start to see that your tree is beginning to spring into life. There we go. I'm going to turn that round, and then you can just see how it's gone from bare branches to the buds, the hope of spring and the beginnings of a new season. Now the next thing I want to do on my card is to show that the bulbs are starting to come up, and usually what you'll find with the bulbs is that the leaves, the dark green leaves, will shoot up above the soil or the grass, and that will happen before the actual tight buds of the flowers begin to appear. So to do that, I'm going to use the very tip of my lollipop stick again and the green paint. And I'm simply going to start at the base of my tree, and I'm just going to do a little upwards motion, making a little upward spike that looks like the leaves of a bulb beginning to appear. Okay, and I'm going to do that in 3 or 4 different places, just to show that there's little clumps of tulips or daffodils or crocuses or snowdrops beginning to appear. And just use the base of this lollipop stick to make these gorgeous leaf-like markings on your paper. There. Can you see? And there's our bulbs all beginning to appear. Spring's well and truly on its way by the 14th of February. So the last thing to do for our card is to make our little hearts that are going to carry the initial of each person that we want to represent on our tree. But while my paint is drying, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about why hearts are so symbolic on Valentine's Day, or to represent love. And what I've learnt is that throughout history, many different cultures and countries have recognised that plants and leaves are formed in the shape of a heart. And one of them is a herb that is called siliphium, and it had a seed pod that bore a striking resemblance to a Valentine's heart. And this herb is associated with love. It is believed that this may have popularised the symbol, and the ancient city, whose wealth came from the seraphim trade, even put a heart shape on its money. In Derby Museum, in the World Collection Gallery, we have a wonderful example of nature being represented in art, and it comes in the form of a beetle leaf box. And the beetle leaf is a perfect example of a heart formed naturally in nature. these boxes were made in ancient Asia, and people would collect the leaves and the nuts that they would use to chew to release the herbal and healing properties that came from it. So again, there is this representation of nature coming together with a festival that we celebrate. Okay, so for my hearts, I have simply taken red paper. I have cut my red paper into a long strip, and then I have cut that strip into a small little rectangle. I have folded this in half, and I have drawn, on the folded side, I have drawn the shape of half a heart with my pencil, like this. I'm now going to cut around that shape. Now this is for a grown-up to do with sharp scissors. And I am going to repeat this for as many people as I want to show on my tree. I'm then going to open my heart out, and you can see the shape there. I'm then going to take my black marker pen, and I'm going to draw on there the initial of my loved one. So I have put an A there for my husband. Now I'm going to turn that over, and I'm going to take my glue, and I'm going to put a little dollop of glue onto my heart, and then I'm going to stick it onto the very top of my tree. Okay, with the one that I did afterwards, or my first card, you'll see that at the top I've put my husband, and then underneath I have put an initial for every other member of my family, and including our pet cat. So obviously on yours you can do anybody that you want to do. It doesn't have to be a family, it can be a friend, it can be a thing, but just something that means an awful lot to you. So there we go, there we have our Valentine's family, friends and pet tree. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and make sure that whilst you're out walking to school or just walking to the shops, take a look at everything around you and see how it's all beginning to just burst into life, and think about how you can be creative with what you see and what inspires you, as this has to me. So thank you for joining my workshop, and I hope I get to see you all again soon. Bye.